Robin Miller, 1940 to 1975. Australian flying nurse. Sugarbird lady. 1. The making of a heroine. 2. Vaccination flights. 3. Royal Flying Doctor Service. 4. An end too soon. 1. The making of a heroine. These two books were the main resources for this video. Robin wrote the left-hand side book, herself, 1972. The right-hand side book, which completed her life story, was compiled by her family after she died, based on her draft, and her copious diaries, 1980. With her nurse's certificate and commercial pilot's license, Robin Miller, 1940 to 1975, solo, delivered thousands of life-saving vaccines to remote, northern Western Australia, WA, one of the most remote areas in the world. This was followed up as a flying nurse, with the famous Royal Flying Doctor Service, RFDS. Tall, fair, and elegant, she was smart, conscientious, determined, cheerful, caring, and popular. She attracted respect and positions of responsibility. She grew up surrounded by aviation, the outback, and Aborigines. She loved them all. Born in Perth, WA's capital, in 1940, Robin's mother was famous Australian author Mary Durack. The Duracks, from Ireland, were the first, in the 1880s, to hold pastoral leases in the Kimberley area of northern WA. The Duracks' Argyle Downs homestead, central to the vast family enterprise, comprised 5 stations, the size of Belgium. The homestead held this position until the stations were sold in 1950. Lake Argyle, a huge man-made lake on the Ord River, built in 1971, is named after the Duracks' property, which the lake partly submerged. Robin's father, Horry, was a famous Australian aviator, who, along with confectionery giant McPherson Robertson, started Western Australian airline, Mac Robertson Miller Aviation, MMA, 1927 to 1993, eventually taken over by Ansett Airlines. MMA operated mainly between Perth in WA and Darwin in the Northern Territory, and many points in between. MMA's main aircraft, in the years immediately after World War II, were ex-military DC-3s C-47s. During her childhood and time at school, Robin spent considerable time in MMA aircraft flying in the outback and to and from the many huge pastoral stations. A common route was on an MMA DC-3 between Perth, where we are now, her hometown, and Broome on the North WA coast, where the family purchased a holiday home after World War II. Robin often sat in the cockpit jump seat, between the pilots, and she loved it. By the age of 10, Robin could recite the full takeoff and landing checklists for the DC-3. Broome, which we are approaching now, at the time the Millers purchased their holiday home, was still showing the scars of Japanese World War II bombings. Robin loved it here. For more on Broome, see my video of the 21st of March 2025 titled World War II DC-3 Crash and Lost Diamonds. At remote Broome, Robin's father kept his privately owned, ex-military, Wacket aircraft. Robin loved to fly in it with her father, around Broome and in the outback. We don't have a Wacket in MSFS, so we'll use another similar Australian-made aircraft, the Wingeal, which came after the Wacket. The Wacket aircraft, owned by Robin's father in Broome, is today preserved in the RAAF Aviation Museum in Perth. In 1962, Robin graduated as a nurse, winning the State Nurses Medical Prize, and also obtained her private pilot license. She undertook nursing because there were no jobs for female pilots at that time. While working as a nurse, she also went on to obtain her commercial pilot license, CPL, in 1966. After winning a rare Commonwealth scholarship to do so. She was the only female CPL student in a class of 30. 2. Vaccination flights. During 1960s polio outbreaks, the WA Department of Health considered getting the recently developed, very effective, oral vaccine, rather than the old injections, by road, to around 30,000 people, mainly Aboriginals, across 500,000 acres in northern and northwestern WA. Robin's offer to do it much more quickly by air, rather than road, saving hundreds of lives, and at a much lower cost, was eventually accepted by the department, and in May 1967, she began distributing polio vaccines, in sugar lumps, to mainly children in remote communities. She soon became known as the Sugarbird Lady. Robin borrowed money to buy a Cessna 182 Skylane, which she later replaced with a Mooney Super 8, to cover a very large, remote, outback area, with many small settlements, as can be seen in this map. With the aircraft cost, and other costs like air charges and insurance, she was broke, in debt, but very happy. She organised all the supplies, including keeping the polio vaccines refrigerated, and later added tetanus injections, and with the help of a specialist doctor, trachoma eye treatment, to her responsibilities. Robin flew, mostly solo, without glass instruments and GPS, in and out of unpaved, rudimentary airstrips, complete with sinkholes, rocks, animals and other hazards. When her program finished, after 2 years, she had flown 43,000 miles, 69,200 kilometers, distributed 37,000 anti-polio doses, saved hundreds of lives, all without major aviation incident or accident. In 1969, she received an international award for her medical work, and in 1970, Australia's Woman Pilot of the Year award. Now let's join Robin on one of her hundreds of vaccination flights over her former ancestral properties, particularly Ivanhoe and Argyll Down stations situated halfway between Broome, bottom left-hand side, and Darwin, top middle, using her own words from her 1972 book, edited for brevity and clarity. We'll take the modern Cessna 182 version of her aircraft, with her actual registration, but remember, she had no glass cockpit or GPS. It was especially moving to visit the stations pioneered by my mother's family. They had settled millions of acres of leased grazing land in northern Western Australia, and over the border in the Northern Territory, their original properties being Argyll, Ivanhoe, and others. It didn't prove to be the gilt-edged asset of their dreams. They still faced uncertain seasons, stock diseases, poor prices, isolation, the Depression, the war, and the rest, so it is little wonder that grandfather decided to sell out while the going was good in 1950. I had been particularly anxious to visit Argyll and Ivanhoe stations, where my mother and ancestors had spent so much of their lives. The Ivanhoe station homestead of those times was destroyed by fire in 1950, and a new place was built on the riverbank. Argyll homestead was the first home to be built in the area and held so much of the history of the district. It was sad to think that it could have disappeared under the waters of the New Ord River Dam and associated vast Lake Argyll, but it was decided that it would be removed and set up again on another site to become a pioneer museum. I experienced such an affectionate welcome from the old station people, who referred nostalgically to Durack time. I made a point, everywhere I went, of asking if there were any Durack time people here. There usually were, and when I introduced myself there would be great excitement. I would find myself fondly embraced and bombarded with questions about different members of the family, and with memories of other days. Approaching present-day Argyll Downs Station. Once after vaccination clinic, I was invited by the Aboriginal community to afternoon tea, which was served with the care and ceremony no doubt taught them by Durack women of long ago. They found it hard to believe that I actually flew an aircraft, but vividly recalled my father stunting over Argyll and Ivanhoe. Argyll Downs Station today occupies 1,000 square kilometres, 386 square miles. It annually provides 7,500 cattle for live export to the Southeast Asia market. Stock horses are also bred and raised on the property for use on other stations. Three, Royal Flying Doctor Service. World-renowned Australian Royal Flying Doctor Service, RFDS, 2022 WA statistics. For more on the RFDS, see my video of the 3rd of November 2021. After completing her polio vaccination flights, Robin obtained her first-class pilot instrument rating and joined the RFDS in 1970. Aircraft and airstrips back then were not as flash as today. Despite initial hostility from male doctors, she persevered, was always on call, flew at night and in all types of weather, responded to hundreds of emergencies, and coped with difficult or frightened patients. Now we'll join Robin on 2 of her RFDS medical flights, using her own words from her 1980 book, edited for brevity and clarity. We'll take her Beechcraft Baron aircraft, with her actual registration. First up is YCAR Carnarvon, Y0GA Mooloo Downs Station, left-hand side of the map. The 24th of March 1972. I was called out to pick up a girl in labour from Mooloo Downs. The outlook was overcast, with the strong hot wind blowing clouds of dust. After pushing the aircraft out of the hangar, I helped load the humidicrib in case of having to fly a newborn baby in the unpressurized aircraft. I located Mooloo Downs, but was careful not to buzz the homestead by circling over in the usual way, as last time I did so the manager threatened to sue the RFDS for having given his missus a migraine. The patient, a girl of 14, was 5 months pregnant and threatening to miscarry. I got her safely back to Carnarvon. Now we'll join Robin on another of her RFDS medical flights, using her own words. Again, we'll take her Beechcraft Baron aircraft. This time, YPJT, Jandakot, to YLGC Lake Grace, and back to Jandakot, bottom left-hand side of the map. The 9th of September 1974. Called by the doctor at Lake Grace about a young woman who had been accidentally shot. He was about to operate and needed assistance. I got the resuscitator and other gear aboard and set off from Jandakot, Perth, with another pilot. I hadn't been on to this strip before. It's a paddock on a farming property, but found it easily enough. Front right-hand side, on shoreline, parallel with bridge. The police were waiting at the airstrip to drive us 7 miles to the hospital in town. The doctor could not find the bullet, and its whereabouts remained a mystery. We helped him with the surgery. We then eased her onto a stretcher and into the ambulance for the ride back to the airstrip.
Stall.
We got the resuscitator set up and the patient aboard the aircraft. It was hard to tell whether she was dead or alive. I struggled to keep the resuscitator, suction and intravenous drips functioning. She stopped breathing at one stage, but an injection and external cardiac massage started her heart and lungs again.
Stall. 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 Stall.
A doctor was waiting for us at Jandakot. We gave her some more treatment before moving her into the ambulance. So far so good, but I very much doubt she will make it. 4. An end. Too soon. From 1970 to 1974, Robin made hundreds of RFDS emergency medical flights. Her vaccination flights were remarkable, but her RDFS flights perhaps even more so, given they had to be made at short notice, day or night, in all sorts of weather and all types of medical situations. Very noble work indeed. As well as her polio and RFDS flights, Robin completed about 8 World Ferry flights, delivering aircraft mainly for the RFDS. She married an RFDS doctor in 1973, with no children. Following the removal of a melanoma in 1974, Robin died from cancer, aged 35, in Perth in 1975. She is buried in her beloved Broome. She received some posthumous international aviation awards. A model of her Mooney aircraft was unveiled at Jandakot Airport, Perth, on the 20th of May 1978. Robin's actual RFDS Beechcraft Baron aircraft is currently being restored by the RAAF Association Aviation Museum in Perth. Thanks for watching. Despite the tragic ending, hope you enjoyed.